Kate Middleton is sharing a lifestyle change after her cancer battle. During a visit to the Southwark,
it's hard not to show any emotion at all, and some Twitter users watching the procession
She has been forced to apologise to Princess Catherine after it made a disrespectful blunder.
Kate Middleton is reflecting on her cancer treatment while visiting a patient named Claire Laurent on her last.
To London now, where Princess Kate and the kids stole the spotlight at the annual Trooping.
Met cancer patients and staff at Colchester Hospital, speaking about the roller coaster of a diagnosis.
Kate Middleton is making her first trip overseas since her cancer treatment. The Princess of Wales. Since my diagnosis, I haven't had much alcohol. It's something I have to be a lot more conscious of now.
She was seen curtsying to her mother one final time while they were in Scotland. Catherine, Princess.
They've apologized to Trump, but he still might be suing for $1 to $5 billion.
Revealed that she was battling an undisclosed type of cancer, causing her to step back from her royal duties.
Kate, whose cancer is now in remission, is looking every bit the future queen. And
She was in remission back in January, though never shared what type of cancer she had.
You're not necessarily.
The royals' itinerary is set to include meetings with families, local educators, and government leaders.
There's one royal wedding almost nobody remembers. Peter Phillips marrying Autumn Kelly in 2008. And yet, by Catherine's own account, it is the wedding that quietly changed everything. Because that's the day she met the Queen for the first time. Not at her own engagement. Not at a grand state occasion. At someone else's wedding, standing among a crowd of guests she barely knew, years before anyone called her a princess. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. By the time Catherine and William sat down for their official engagement interview in November 2010, the journalist's question seemed simple enough. Had meeting the Queen been intimidating? Catherine's answers surprised people who expected a story about nerves, formality, a daunting first impression. I first met her at Peter and Autumn's wedding, she said. It was amongst a lot of other guests, and she was very friendly. William added his own memory of the day. She's very welcoming, he said. She knew it was a big day and everything was going on with Peter and Autumn. She'd wanted to meet Kate for a while, so it was very nice of her to come over and say hello. That single sentence, she'd wanted to meet Kate for a while, is the part almost nobody noticed at the time, because it meant the Queen wasn't simply introduced to her grandson's girlfriend at a wedding by chance. She had been waiting for the opportunity. She had asked for it. According to royal editor Russell Myers, this wasn't an isolated moment of curiosity. Myers writes that long before Catherine ever appeared at an official royal engagement, the Queen had already become intent on keeping a watchful eye over her heir, and that interest extended naturally to the woman beside him. The monarch, Myers reports, had invited the couple to meet and even dine with her on several occasions before the relationship was ever made public. The 2008 wedding wasn't the beginning of the Queen's interest. It was simply the first time the public could have seen it if anyone had been looking closely enough. And almost nobody was. At the time, the tabloids were preoccupied with William and Kate's on-again, off-again relationship, the years of speculation, the nickname that followed her everywhere. Waity Katie, as though she were simply standing in line, waiting for a decision that wasn't hers to make. The press wasn't watching how the Queen behaved toward her at a cousin's wedding. They were watching whether William would propose at all. It's easy looking back to understand why that detail got buried. Royal weddings outside the immediate line of succession rarely draw the same scrutiny. Peter Phillips, as Princess Anne's son, carried none of the constitutional weight that William did. His wedding was, by royal standards, a private family affair, which is precisely what made it the perfect place for the Queen to do something she likely couldn't have done as easily anywhere else. No press pen, no formal receiving line, just a grandmother surrounded by family, choosing to walk over to a young woman she'd apparently wanted to meet for some time. But weddings, inside the royal family, are never just celebrations. They are observation posts. Every member of the family is seated, photographed, and quietly assessed, not just by reporters, but by each other. And at Peter Phillips's wedding, while the cameras were pointed at the bride and groom, the Queen made a small, deliberate choice to walk over to a guest who wasn't yet family at all, and treat her as though she already was. This is the detail that reframes everything that came after. 3 years later, when Catherine and William held their own wedding at Westminster Abbey, that early warmth had grown into something the Queen rarely extended so early to anyone marrying into the family. Months before the ceremony, Myers writes, Catherine was invited back to Buckingham Palace for what the Queen's office called a casual catch-up. Tea and finger sandwiches, no agenda, no official business. According to Myers, the Queen set aside questions about the dress, the guest list, the church, and instead offered something far more personal. Guidance drawn from her own 70-year marriage to Prince Philip, including how to handle a husband who could be headstrong. She reassured Catherine that there would be plenty of room for her loved ones at the wedding, and told her not to worry about all the people she wouldn't know. Then came the detail nobody expected. According to Myers, the Queen offered Catherine the chance to choose a tiara from her own personal jewelry collection to wear on her wedding day, a gesture one former courtier described as startling to the young bride. Catherine, Myers wrote, left that meeting with a spring in her step. It's worth sitting with what that gesture actually meant. The Queen had lived through Charles and Diana's wedding, a fairy tale built for the cameras that collapsed under its own weight within years. She knew, better than anyone alive, the difference between a royal wedding that looked perfect and a royal marriage that was built to last. When she chose to personally guide Catherine through her wedding day, rather than simply approve the arrangements from a distance, she wasn't performing generosity for an audience. There was no audience. It happened over tea with no cameras and no statement from the palace. That contrast mattered more than it might seem. Royal historians have long pointed out that the Queen spent far more time nurturing the relationship between William and Catherine than she ever did supporting Charles and Diana's. It wasn't simply that she liked Catherine personally, although by every account she did. It was caution, learned the hardest possible way, decades earlier, and applied with quiet deliberateness the second time the stakes were this high. The monarchy had already lived through what happens when a future king marries someone the institution never fully absorbed. The Queen, by the time Peter Phillips married in 2008, had no intention of watching that story repeat itself. So when Catherine walked into Westminster Abbey in 2011, she carried something into that wedding that the cameras couldn't capture. A year plus of quiet attention from the one woman in the family whose approval mattered more than anyone's, given freely, long before the ring or the announcement, and the cameras did capture something else that day, even if most viewers missed its significance at the time. As Catherine walked down the aisle in the Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen gown, Rebecca English has since described the moment the congregation reacted, an audible gasp rippling through the abbey. But English has also pointed to a smaller, quieter detail folded inside that same moment, the Queen's own expression as Catherine passed her. No stiffness, no formality, simply a smile. According to English, there was none of the famous reserve people expected. Catherine had, in her words, got the seal of approval, visibly in the one place where the entire world happened to be watching. That pattern didn't end on her wedding day. It became the visible, repeatable habit royal fashion editors would spend the next decade documenting. Take her appearance at Princess Eugenie's wedding in 2018. Royal editor Rebecca English has pointed to that day specifically. A raspberry Alexander McQueen dress, paired with a matching Philip Treacy hat, as one of Catherine's standout wedding guest looks. But English also noted the context that made the choice deliberate. Catherine had only just had Prince Louis weeks earlier, and had already attended Harry and Meghan's wedding that same year. According to English, she likely wasn't looking to make a fashion statement at all. She simply wanted to get through the day. Months later, at the wedding of her close friend Sophie Carter, Catherine reached for a cornflower blue Catherine Walker coat dress she had already worn on a royal tour of Poland and Germany the year before. English has described this kind of choice as a deliberate strategy, what she calls a royal rewear, used specifically so as not to upstage the bride. And at Pippa Middleton's wedding to James Matthews in 2017, Catherine chose an understated blush pink Alexander McQueen dress, once again keeping the attention, in English's words, firmly on the bride. Even years earlier, while pregnant with Prince George, Catherine attended the wedding of William Van Cutsem and Rosie Ruck-Keene in a maternity dress from the high street brand Topshop, a choice English has pointed to as evidence of the same instinct working in a different register. Rather than competing with a bride in high fashion, Catherine simply chose not to compete at all. That kind of stillness doesn't happen by accident inside a family where every gesture is photographed and picked apart. It's learned. And according to people who studied Catherine's relationship with the Queen closely, that's exactly what happened. Royal biographer Sally Bedell Smith put it simply. Catherine had learned by observing. She knew what resonated, not through formal tutoring, but through years of proximity to a monarch whose own unofficial motto, never complain, never explain, became something Catherine seemed to absorb so completely that even body language analysts years later would point to the same stillness, the same composure in nearly every appearance she made. Royal insiders have been careful to note that this wasn't the Queen running some kind of formal training program. It was something quieter and in some ways harder to replicate. The Queen simply treated Catherine the way she treated visiting heads of state, with warmth, with subtle guidance, and crucially, with proximity. She gave her access to rooms most newcomers to the family never entered so early, and inside those rooms, Catherine watched, the same way any apprentice watches a master whose methods can't be written down in any briefing document. That access explains something that puzzled royal commentators for years: why Catherine, unlike so many others who married into the family, never seemed to stumble publicly in the way the institution often expects newcomers to. There was no awkward adjustment period captured on camera, no visible misstep at an early engagement. By the time the cameras were watching closely, she had already had years of watching the Queen up close, at exactly the kind of events where mistakes are made and remembered forever. Weddings, funerals, the family's most exposed public moments. The Queen never announced any of this. There was no public statement explaining why Catherine seemed to fit so naturally into rooms that had swallowed other newcomers whole. But the evidence sits quietly in plain sight, scattered across more than a decade of wedding photographs. The same warmth the Queen first showed a nervous young guest at Peter Phillips's wedding in 2008, repeated and reinforced at every family wedding that followed, until it became simply how Catherine carried herself, with or without the Queen standing beside her. There's a quiet irony in how the public told this story for years. The headlines focused on whether Catherine would ever become a princess. Meanwhile, at a relatively low-profile family wedding years earlier, the Queen had already quietly decided something the rest of the country wouldn't understand until long after the fact: that she'd found, in this particular guest, among a crowd of guests, someone worth walking over to meet. It's tempting, looking back, to treat this as a small footnote in a much bigger story, a pleasant detail in an otherwise familiar royal romance. But footnotes have a way of explaining everything once you know where to look. The years of composure, the wedding after wedding where Catherine never once became the story, the complete absence of the early stumbles every other newcomer to the family seemed destined to make in public. None of it happened by chance. It happened because years before any of it mattered to the rest of the world, one woman had already decided to find out who Catherine really was, and liked what she saw enough to keep finding reasons to do it again. The Queen saw it first at a wedding nobody now remembers. Everyone else only caught up once Catherine started showing them the same thing, wedding after wedding, year after year, exactly as the Queen always knew she would. And that's the story behind the calm.